I'm Brian Baxter. I'm the founder and president of Gentleman Inc. Gentleman Inc. is a really newly formed nonprofit focusing on attacking the demand for human trafficking. And not just attacking the demand for human trafficking, but doing so by going after the behaviors and the habits that contribute to the demand for human trafficking. For example, sexually oriented business. Topless clubs generate demand for sex trafficking, as well as pornography. Even legal pornography has been shown to contribute to a demand for sex trafficking. So human trafficking and pornography are linked in many ways. There's a little bit of pushback. There's been very little just outright, hey, I can't believe you're attacking legal pornography, but there's been some kind of hints at pornography is pure fantasy, pornography is harmless, pornography is a victimless situation, and it leads to a short but useful conversation about the exploitation and the victimization that often goes on behind the scenes of legal pornography. Many people who participate in otherwise legal pornography, adults, are doing so kind of under false pretenses. Either they don't intend to participate in pornography in the beginning, and they end up through subtle coercion or outright coercion participating in pornography. Many people are so affected emotionally by what they're doing on film to make ends meet or to get a paycheck that they turn to drugs and alcohol, further causing problems in their life, and it just causes a spiral that they continue to go down, and it makes things much worse, not much better. Very often also, these people end up transitioning from the pornography industry into the sex trafficking industry, and very often those lines are blurred. The pornography is a form of sex trafficking in many cases. There's also a link to going back as far as interviews with Ted Bundy, linking the effects on the human being that consumes pornography to violence, particularly violence against women, and how the images and the content of the pornography kind of shifts the sense of what's real and what's acceptable. There are women who consume commercial sex. There are women who contribute to the victimization of people in pornography. There are women who contribute to sexually oriented business. But by and large, the vast majority of consumers of commercial sex, the vast majority of consumers of sexually oriented business and pornography are men. There's going to be an outreach, a public outreach prong that reaches out to young men and offers some education and awareness as far as the harms and the dangers of sexually oriented business and pornography and commercial sex, of course. There's also a professional training piece. Having been in law enforcement for over a quarter of a century myself, and having worked closely with human trafficking, particularly sex trafficking investigations, the victims and the men who create the demand, being able to offer some of that insight gained over those years in law enforcement to agencies that may not have that information or may not have those resources. And then finally, a general education and awareness campaign. This group, all of the groups working together are probably never going to completely stop men from watching pornography, consuming pornography, probably never going to stop men from consuming commercial sex. But for each young man that's influenced in a positive way who doesn't consume pornography, that's a win. For each young man that doesn't become a consumer of commercial sex, that's a win, because that's one less victim to be consumed. If people didn't buy people for sex, people wouldn't be sold for sex. Helping a young man make better choices may not change the world, but it'll change the world for that young man, and it may change the world for 1, 2, 10, 100 victims of sex trafficking.